Hey, welcome back to the Gas Compression Podcast. Today, I'm excited to have David Vannostran. And David is the Vice President of Operations at Ultimate Chemicals. And so I heard David speak at the GCA last month down in Galveston and kind of piqued my interest. And we kind of connected there. So what's interesting about Ultimate Chemical is that they're the only chemical company out there that's focused primarily and exclusively on our industry. And David, when I went to y'all's website and looked at your happy customers tab, it's all the same folks we know. It's DCP Midstream, Interflex, Archrock. It's all the gas compression companies. So excited to have you on. I want to go into kind of what problems you guys are solving that a lot of people in the industry are probably also facing, but kind of want to start with kind of the background of Ultimate Chemical, how it got started, when you joined the company. So kind of catch me up there about
Sure.
the background of Ultimate Chemical.
Well, Ultimate Chemicals was founded by Kevin Heidebright. He had worked for many years for a couple of different companies, and when one of the last company had basically closed up, he started Ultimate Chemicals, I guess, about 2010. I've been with Ultimate Chemicals now for 6 years, and he's got all the experience and all the knowledge, and like I said, came on, and we've just kind of really listened to the customers out there and found out what their problems they're having, and took it one problem at a time. So it's really about chemistry and finding a solution for that one customer, and it turns out we solve it for one, it actually turns out to be a solution for many others,
Right.
and then we have a new product.
So when you guys got started, have you always been focused on gas compression?
That is it. That is the primary business.
Since
We are the
2010?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay. Well, let's just kind of start diving into what problems you guys saw industry wide and what customers were saying and what you started to do to address those.
Well, I guess the first thing was, we have, our CC300 that we were going out to clean the fin fan coolers, and got the very best product for that. It's more widely used than any other chemical. And I guess when we're out there on site, somebody says, "Hey, we've got a problem with our cooling system. Do you have anything that can flush this out?" Well, it all starts with a sample, always. And so Kevin got to work on that, and we came up with this thing called PMF, which is our Preventive Maintenance Flush. And the Preventive Maintenance Flush is designed to run every 2-3 years in a system where it gets rid of the silicate dropout, where the glycol starts to break down. Also, any kind of exhaust or oil that gets into the system as well, and basically restores your cooling system back to 0 hour. The problem is when someone has that buildup over time, and what happens is that it starts to burn the glycol as it starts to heat, and it just gets a little hotter each year and a little hotter the next year, and then we have burnt glycol, or there's a mechanical failure where there's a crack in the exhaust manifold because it got hot or something of the sort. And so when that burnt glycol happens, he created this heavy duty flush, and that is the only product out there that will go in there and actually dissolve the burnt glycol in the system while it's running, that can alleviate the problem and restore it back.
Tell me about the process of how you do that. Do you sell the chemicals and these solutions to the customer, and they do the process, or do you guys go out and do it yourself?
Well, we've done, thousands of PM flushes, but I guess we've done over 500, pushing close to 600 of the heavy duty flushes, and now we actually have that chemical available to sell. The thing is we always want to hit that bullseye dead center. So we've always had samples and lab reports and so forth from the solids, and so that way we can do our own testing as well to make sure we're going right after what we need to dissolve and not hurting anything or harming anything that we shouldn't. One of the things we found out in those lab results is that every lab result we've ever gotten hundreds, have been they contain rust, and so rust seems to be one of the root causes of this buildup as well on the walls of all the piping and the tubes and the engine liners. And like I said, we have a rust removal flush that we came up with. That nice thing about it, you only run it for 2 hours at temperature, and it'll actually dissolve all the rust and, or where you can flush it out of the system.
What is the process of actually treating the how you guys would actually go about treating it? Like how does that work?
Well, on the preventive maintenance flush, it's pretty easy. It's like we make it where it's mixed 1-to-1, so it's 1 part our flush to 1 part deionized water. And what we do is you'll drain the system out and pre-mix thoroughly, and then be able to fill from the lowest part down there, like a ball valve next to the rail on the right side, and fill it up till it starts coming out to the surge tank. And then cap it off, start it up, and let it run for 10 days. And at the end of that 10 days, you'll be able to, wash out the surge tank while it's hot with the hose. So that way, any of the small soft particles that have floated up can rinse out till it's clear. And then drain everything out, load it up with deionized water, start it up where the thermostats are open, and then basically start pumping in about twice as much of the volume, and let it come out the other side and out the surge tank cap. So that way it floats out, everything goes all the way through the system, and any, contaminants or particles can go out the other side and drain, and then fill it with your coolant mix.
Because I'm not in this world, in the operational world, you can't move gas while you're flushing the system out, can you?
Yes, that's the neat thing about us. It's not like you have to shut down your system for 10 days.
Well, that was
So
my
that
question.
means,
Yeah.
so what you basically do is, like I said, your only downtime is while you refill it with our flush, and then start it up and run it. So you're actually, compressing gas and running through that whole time, that full week, say if it's for one flush or another. And the nice thing about the rust flush is it only runs for 2 hours at temperature, and then you're ready to shut it down, drain it out, do the rinse out. And we have to follow up a lot of the heavy duty flushes with the rust flush to make sure, because you'll find even without a lab report, you can take a little bit of what's in there and just stick a magnet down into that sample. And I've had a guy actually ask him, said, how quickly you want to do this? He said, I can't wait for a lab report. He says, what can I do? I said, just stick a magnet on the side of that sample bottle. And he says, David, I can pick up the bottle with a magnet.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, what's the typical time? Let's say somebody wanted to actually get the lab report. So you come out, pull some samples, send them off. How long before you get the actual lab report back so you can hit that bullseye, like you said?
From the time that it gets to the lab, we usually have them mail a sample to us and mail a sample to the lab. The lab has about a week to 2 weeks turnaround, depending on how busy they are. So it can be a 2-week process till we have the results, and we can test with our sample that we have, and be able to say, okay, we're ready. And then it's just shipping the chemical then that they need. Now, our PM flush is a standard. It's ready to go. And like I said, it's a mix 1-to-1. So it's like for a 3516, it's about 220 gallons to 300 gallons. All it takes is 2 drums of our flush. Whereas like the heavy duty flush, it has to be, if it's a 200 gallons, it needs 200 gallons of flush. So, and you run that through twice. So you'll run it through a week at one time and a week the next time. And of course, in between those, you'll rinse out the surge tank, like I was telling you, after each, session that it's ran, and then do the rinse out. And if there's rust present, you'll run a rust flush at the end of it as well.
What percentage of these flushes does Ultimate Chemical go on site and do? And what percentage do you just ship and sell the customer the chemicals and they do it?
I would say we probably only do about 10% of them at this point.
Oh, wow.
As far as the heavy duty flushes. Mostly, we don't do many PM flushes now. That's just a regular thing. We have several companies, before their top end or overhaul, they'll just either go onto our online store and place an order. Otherwise, give us a call and get them a quote, depending on the relationship. And, we'll ship those out, and then they'll run it for, 10 days beforehand. And then, and like I said, we've had thoroughly tested this for several years now, and we've done over, like I said, 500, pushing almost to 600 as far as the heavy duty flushes. And I think we've shipped out enough to do about probably a dozen at least here in the last couple of weeks, as far as heavy duty flushes.
Wow. Do you see any kind of a difference of like, gas and operations down in South Texas versus Wyoming versus the Marcellus Shale over on the east? Are you seeing, I mean, is it, you have to really pay attention to that, or is it kind of, you can
Well,
use the same?
one thing I'll tell you is we were asked by some guys that are over in Farmington, New Mexico, and up in Wyoming and Colorado. They on some smaller units like 3300s, they may not have monitoring where they basically make a route and have a rounds where they go through and check them. So if that and they do a lot of PMs in the wintertime, which I didn't realize. So they asked us to come up with something that would work down to freezing in case that system shut off with our flush in there, so it wouldn't cause any harm. So Kevin developed our cold weather PM flush, which is
nice.
Here's what the funny thing about it: we sell a lot of that to the people during the winter time and so on, and it's good down to 0 degrees. And the neat thing about it is, and how it works, instead of mixing it 1-to-1 with water, you mix it 1 part with our flush and 1 part a 50-50 coolant mix. And, it's sort of like a mechanic. If you give a mechanic a new tool, they'll eventually find out how to use it as a hammer. And so the guys we sell it to most are the offshore guys and the guys out in the middle of New Mexico or something where they don't have good access to water, but they've got coolant mix there. So they'll use the cold weather PM flush in the hottest when it's 110 degrees out.
I guess it's not going to hurt anything.
Yep. Yeah. Oh no, it won't. In fact, we had somebody ask me about that, and of course we've tested it with all the seals and gaskets and everything from Caterpillar and Waukesha. So what's interesting about it is we had one fellow that had ordered our flush, put it in a system, and then we got a call. It was in there for he had left the company, and no one really knew it was in there. So they it ran for 2 years and 5 months. Our flush did, and of course we're all out there with our bore scopes, opening everything up, taking a water pump off, looking at it, and nope, no problem, no harm done. It just had a little bit of rust. So we went ahead and we said, okay, here, let's do a little rust flush and zap the rust. It was 0-hour cooling system after running that flush in there for almost 2.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what has changed in the industry over the last 12 years since Ultimate Chemical's been around? I mean, is it basically you're using the same formula that you've always used? Is it, or are you changing? I mean, is anything changing?
Well, I guess the things that have changed is, I mean, we've kind of set the standard now as far as how to clean coolers with our CC300. It's not where it's just a whole bunch of foam put on there. And it's not, and our chemical is also not caustic where it would hurt aluminum like a lot of the smaller companies would clean coolers with in the past. That'll actually react with the aluminum. And even when we talk about, on the flushes, a lot of guys, we've had guys that put different types of degreasers in to try to flush their systems out, and the worst thing is something they used to do years ago was put Cascade or Dawn dishwashing, and you think, okay, that's going to help get rid of the oil, but here's the problem. It may help with the oil, but the problem is when we look at a lab report from one of these, we see all these phosphates that it creates, and it sort of jellifies and becomes thick and coats the walls of all the tubes in the cooler and all the pipes and around the engine and stuff, and it starts to harden up, and eventually it's going to burn up and burn the glycol. So don't ever do that. Like I said, if someone was, the perfect scenario would be to run our PMF every 2-3 years, and when you fill up with coolant, we have a new product that basically is our corrosion rust inhibitor. And we had if I could tell you how we came up with that, if you're interested.
Yeah, sure.
We had a guy call. He had a 10,000 gallon cooling system offshore, and the problem is they're running 25% ethylene glycol to 75%, really just the worst water you can imagine from their well water, worse than West Texas. And so they sent 5-gallon bucket of the water, and they sent their ethylene glycol and the samples, of course, of what they had, and we ran it to the lab, and they ran it with our CRI, and they said, well, it looks like at 6% solution with the CRI, you could it'll make the environment 99% rust free. And so how that translates is it's only 3% a solution for CRI added to your coolant mix that will keep you 99% rust free. So a couple of things is rust is probably the heart of a lot of these problems because the water that people use, and then there's really no rust inhibitor in any kind of coolant mix that people put in.
Yeah.
So what we found out is if someone was, well, in fact, I've got a fellow that basically he has when they put out commission new units, and they're taking new units that are sitting in the yard or whatever all apart, and they put them together and start them up. They're actually running our rust flush through those units very first thing they do to get rid of any of that little flash rust that's been in there and all that. And that way they're a rust-free environment. And the best thing, like I said, is to put a 3% solution of CRI with the coolant mix. You'll be 99% rust-free until your next maintenance cycle.
Wow. Is that kind of the latest? What latest thing? I was looking on your website earlier, and I saw that you guys were featured on Manufacturing Marvels.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Got contacted. I guess end of last September, and they basically said, we've been running on Fox Business here, doing the show for 13 years, and we recognize you as a leader in your industry, and we'd like to do a little episode about you. And man, we're very thrilled to be chosen, and I think it turned out very well. Like I said, it kind of shows you a little bit about what we do and all of our other products, which we we're able to show a little bit on there about those.
Yeah. So in theory, which is always different than practice in reality, these compressors and these units should be on a very consistent, hit, flush after so many hours. Is that right? You should have yeah. So do you guys at Ultimate Chemical try to keep tabs on that and reach out to the customer, or are they doing that with you? Or because you talk across the board, I'm in the machine shop business, and so it's like when wrecks happen, it's not because we didn't know it was going to happen, right? There's always this preventative maintenance aspect that may or may not have gotten overlooked. So are you helping customers and dinging them on a basis and saying, hey, it's time for us to do another flush, or how's that working?
Well, there may be companies vary as far as how their maintenance cycles are, and you may have one that runs say a unit for 75,000 hours until they're ready for an overhaul. And like I said, it varies between companies. And so we just say, we recommend, like I said, that 2 or 3 year period, between that, like I said, that's when you would run the preventive maintenance flush. And like I said, if there's something that breaks down, then, or, something mechanically that happens, then, and they've got contamination, that contamination is going to be bad. So the number one thing is check your coolant, and if it starts to be discolored or especially turn brownish or black, or you see oil in it, to take care of the oil, it would be the PM flush, and if it's the black burnt stuff, it'd be the heavy duty flush. And then I would strongly recommend running that rust flush, that take care of any rust inside the system. And then of course, to prevent that rust from ever happening, to keep it 99% rust free, would be the corrosion rust inhibitor.
Mm-hmm.
It's just think about when you drive your truck right now and you say, okay, I've got a maintenance plan that I've got to maintain. Otherwise, my warranty's not going to get honored, right? So
right.
You just kind of got to think it's sort of a pay now or pay more later kind of situation also.
But isn't that so hard to convince? I don't know why that is. Like I said, I'm in the machine shop business, and so pull those things off. Let's spray those cylinders before we get to that. And so why is that so hard to convince? I mean,
when somebody all of a sudden pulls out a water pump and it's only pumping about 4 psi when it should be 25 to 30 or something, and it's all cavitated because things are clogged up, it's a mess, and it just starts to break down everything until you have a catastrophic failure. And the problem here's one of the issues also is a lot of guys, that used to be where, okay, well, let's swing the engine. Well, I don't know about you, but I mean, it could be a couple $100,000 to swing an engine, whereas and you got $1 million piece of equipment you're sitting there running. And with everything together, it's a lot more money ahead to go ahead and say, well, let's just maintain this and keep that cooling system at a 0 hour, because if it overheats, boy, you're going to start replacing lots of parts.
All right. How far? I mean, I'm sure you guys work all over the country. Do you work outside the United States?
We actually have a distributor coming online for India, and it works with Mexico, and looking for some other distributors outside. We've shipped to Dubai, we've shipped to Saudi, we've shipped to India, we've shipped to Canada,
Nice.
Mexico. So we're shipping. However, there's customs issues and so on. So we're looking for distributors in other areas.
I had a woman on my podcast a couple of weeks ago, Jadwiga. I think her company is called, I can't remember, but that's I think it was Process. I can't remember exactly, but that's what they do. They are kind of focused on that outside the United States market. So you might reach out to her. She's
Nice.
she's yeah. So yeah, I can't I think this is really cool because you guys have just really gone all in on the gas compression industry. And I just want to encourage anyone out there. David loves to talk about Ultimate Chemical and loves to talk about to fixing problems. And so, yeah, if you're out there and you're having cooling issues or you're having, system issues, you need to reach out to David. ultimatechemical.com is the website. David's real active on LinkedIn. And so, anything else you want to say, David, or
Well, and I guess the other things, if they go out to ultimatechemicals.com, they'll see all of our products that are available, and it calculates shipping, either if you wanted to order a few totes or drums or buckets, whatever size you need. And the other thing we've done is we really listen to our customers. So they say, hey, how do I clean this? Well, we've got different products you'll see out there to clean everything from catalyst to clean spark plugs, to clean out the gas section flushes. And I guess the biggest product we've got, besides what we've done with the cooling systems, would be our valve treatment removed, which is to clean valves once they're all boogered up from all the contamination. And we actually have valve treatment injection, which is actually injected into the compressor and will actually keep the valves from getting dirty and keep the gas sections clean, the cylinders, everything.
Wow.
I mean, there's still going to be service on the valves, but it will at least keep things from your valve temps from going up and having all those vibrations and problems.
Yeah. And that's awesome. It's cool to have people that are so focused on the industry that knows what they're doing, that we could really say are experts in this field. So, man, keep up the good work. I love that. You guys are in Moore, Oklahoma. Is that where you're headquartered?
That's where our office is, right?
Cool.
And we manufacture, I guess, out by Chandler, Oklahoma. So we have large manufacturing there.
Awesome. Well, I love small businesses making things happen, solving problems. It's really cool. So keep up the good work, David, and maybe we'll talk again soon.